of this hour on this topic. So I want to go ahead and get started and welcome everyone who is joining us here today for the November Mystic Society Salon. I have my Mystics lift on today. Wouldn't you know, I would have to get braces the year that the Mystic Society has its salons go public. So anyway, forgive my list.
I know what you're the list, if that helps.
Celia says I have to give a disclaimer at the beginning of every call now to tell them I have braces, really? Not only for the list, but because she's like, you make funny faces. You got braces.
It's the grimace, Lindsay.
It's like there's a grimace and a lift with the braces. But it's keeping me in the moment, and it's keeping me connected to my youth. Oh, there's Dina. Hi, my friend. Hi. So I am super excited that we are having this conversation this month, not only because this is the season to be thinking about how we want to wind into the end of the year, what space we can clear, how we can open ourselves to receiving the blessings of this time of year. But it's also so profoundly the time of Thanksgiving and this embodiment work, and especially how Dawn does it and bring it forth, has a tremendous element and component of ceremony that's connected to gratitude. So I'm excited about that. Before we get started and I introduce Dawn fully, I just want to share a little bit of news from the Mystic Society. So as many of you know, we had a huge milestone and we welcomed our 100th Mystic, which was so exciting. And I got super excited and kind of ran with this idea of doing a celebration giveaway for the 100th Mystic, which was such a great learning experience, and pushed me into outside of my comfort zone, into Instagram and into creating a giveaway process. And from that, I learned that I don't really like giveaways that much, that if I would do a giveaway, I want to give something to everybody on the planet. So the good news about that is that we have a celebration coming up in January, because it'll be our first anniversary. January 15th will be 1 year of
already.
I know. So we've learned from this giveaway and from the fun of welcoming in the new 100th Mystics winners that we're going to be doing some prizes and giveaways, but it's going to be something that everybody can enjoy. So I'm excited for that, and keep an eye out for that. Also, a little bit of news as people are joining us. The 2016 pricing for the Mystic Society is going up, and that becomes effective on December 8th. So for those who have talked about inviting a sister in or wanting to share it, between now and December 8th, we'll lock in 2015 pricing for all of 2016. The format we had talked before might shift a little. It is not going to shift. It's going to stay the exact same. The portal will stay the same. The monthly salon and guests, the group coaching, business alchemy breakouts, that will be all part of one package and will continue into the new year. We do have one other piece of news, which is kind of exciting. So it's kind of auspicious, too, because a lot of people know me and know the Mystics for the intimate mastermind, for the closed and intimate circle of 8 women that we do each year. And we have Lisa here, who is Mastermind Sister. But we also, our guest today is actually the reason that we are all here today.
Oh, my gosh. I didn't know
I didn't know I was going to do this either. But Dawn was in a mastermind with me, with Erin Cox, before the Mystics had even come through the ethers. And when that very first download came through after one of my famous mystic naps, and I just kind of shared this prose of this thing that seemed to want to be born, I was like, what do I do with this, ladies? And Dawn was not only one of the first to say, oh my goodness, that's what you're here to do. Let's bring in the mystic side with all that business strategy and process and technology. But she was the very first woman to raise her hand and say, not only do I see value in that, but I want to be the first person to sign up and join. So she is our very first mystic. So,
and I'm so glad I did.
Well, and Dawn has moved through the mastery and was part of creating that. And now we're dancing in some really beautiful sacred commerce priestess work. So it's been a total honor to be on the journey with Dawn. And she has also been part of the Mystic Muse that has brought it all forward. So deep bow of gratitude to Dawn. So kind of regular practice in the world of mystics is that we take a moment to bring our hearts and minds together before we get started. This is a way that we create the container for our conversation today, but we also bring ourselves into receiving the theme of the month for whatever teachings or guidance might be coming in new ways for us. This is a way that we can maybe open ourselves to hearing things in new ways or seeing things in new ways. And so I invite you, if you're able, to close your eyes if it works for you. If you're not able to close your eyes or you're calling in or driving, that's okay. Maybe even just a hand on your thigh, something that connects you into your body and brings you into the awareness of your breath. I want to take a moment to give thanks for our ability to come together and be connected across the miles. Many of us had no internet this morning, so I'm grateful that the internet jackals have moved on to wherever they go and that we are supported now in being connected heart to heart and mind to mind. I want to bring our hearts and minds together from a place of gratitude for the 4 directions. This morning when I first stepped outside into the morning, I was met with a landscape that had received rain for the first time in a very long time. And not only was it evident in the light coming through the glistening trees, it was evident in the kind of hazy light coming up from the east where the sun was rising. It was shining through the deodar in the south where the hawks nest at Hawk's Perch. It was coming in the form of this beautiful breeze that smelled of rosemary and of damp hay grasses from the west. And it also held with it that cool and that inviting shift into the seasons that I think of when I think of the north, those mystery energies and that cooling energy. So I want to give thanks to those 4 directions and invite the guides and the energies of the directions to join us here today. Giving thanks to the earth beneath our feet, to the directions above our head, and especially today for the direction within us, the inner space within ourselves that so beautifully mimics all of those outer directions and actually is the place from which the alchemy happens. It is the place within ourselves where we become the prism in the intersection of cellular form and light. And from there I extend a blanket of gratitude in all directions, to include things that may have come to mind but not been spoken, anything that might have come up for you, anything that enabled you to be here in the moment and to claim this time for yourself and to join Dawn and myself. And with deep gratitude and thanks, our hearts and minds are now one. Okay, I have to get a pulse from Lisa. I always have to do the thumbs up pulse. She can hear me, she can see me. Oh yeah, we don't go forward without Lisa's thumbs up. It's awesome. I also want to give thanks to Candace, who is recording and being hostess today. So she's behind the scenes and we can message her if there's anything wonky on your end. But now I really want to move into our topic, which is, again, around receiving and clearing space to receive in the context of gratitude. And this is such an important topic, not just because of the energies, as we mentioned, but because these are the areas on the wheel, the manifestation life cycle, where we most often see creatives and intuitives and spiritual entrepreneurs blocked. We tend to not be the type of community that's real blocked on the vision. We tend to have a sense of what we want to do and all that is possible. We tend to be pretty aligned with how to create that vision, whether it's via vision board or a strategic plan or a spreadsheet or prisms where we create all of the above. We tend to be able to self-motivate to take steps in alignment to that. But then we see a lot of people get stuck in that area of, why is it not coming into form? Why is it not landing here on earth? Why am I still waiting? What is missing? What are the blocks? And Dawn's work is transformational and powerful on this level of creating space and allowing the body to create the room for the blessings to arrive. When I first started working with Dawn, one of the things that struck me about her was she was one of the most potent and rapid manifestors I had ever experienced working with. We've had others since then who, like Dawn, have the ability to kind of put it out, and once we put into word, have things come in quickly. But I had never seen anyone who's, we all kind of have our own thumbprint for how long in our cycles of manifestation. Dawn's was almost spontaneous, so much so, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dawn, but you had your own breaks in place around how much you spoke out loud, because you knew that as you put things into form, they manifested rapidly. And I credit that in some part to Dawn's, the way she runs energy through her body, the space that she holds for transformation, and especially for her awareness from early on at how important the body is and embodiment is for releasing trauma and bringing us into alignment with our truth and purpose. So I want to hand it over to Dawn to introduce herself and tell us a little bit more about her work in the world. But I just want to thank you so much, Dawn, and everyone for being here. I think this is such an important topic. Welcome, Dawn.
Thank you. I love talking to you always, so I'm really excited to be here. Can everybody hear me before I launch in? You just want me to introduce myself?
Yes. Well, you are a bridge walker. We talk a lot in the Mystics about bridge walkers. You are a true bridge walker. You have a rock solid, kick-ass background in therapy and supporting women in all realms, in the trenches. But you also are a bridge walker. You are a mystic, a goddess, a movement inspirer. You are a catalyst for change, and you have brought those two worlds together. Will you tell us a little bit about those worlds and how it brought you to today?
Yes. So my background is psychotherapy. I was a psychotherapist for about, say, 14, 15 years, and I still do deep healing work. I just call myself a psychospiritual counselor now, but I'm a licensed clinical social worker in the state of Texas, and my experiences in working with anywhere from young children, 18 months old, all the way through adults, and working with moms, working with helping them in their relationships with their children, helping them be the women they want their daughters to become, essentially. And doing that through the body-centered work that I'm trained in. I'm trained in Hakomi body-centered psychotherapy, which I'm not going to get into because honestly, I don't really use it in that way. I have my own way of working with people now. I use my intuition, like you all do, and as well as my grounded experience in the psychotherapeutic field. And so I go into the body with clients and I help them see the unconscious patterning that they're hanging on to, and it might come up as images, colors. We go into the physical sensations and we start to clear it. What else? I'm trained in Koya, which is a beautiful divine feminine dance, and I started incorporating that into my work because I felt each piece has come very naturally for me. So I used to do talk therapy, and I kept feeling like there's something more. People were coming in and just spinning their wheels, just talking about the same stuff. And even though they felt good, I felt like I could be doing more to help them. And so that's when I discovered the Hakomi. So then I went through the Hakomi, which was very deeply healing for myself, going through that training. It's a 2-year training. I went through the first year and a half. And so I'm not certified, but I utilize.
Tell me again what Hakomi is. Like, I'm forgetting.
So really, it incorporates mindfulness and the body. So it's a body centering way of working, but it's really about being curious about. I'm not going to explain it that well because I really don't do it anymore. But it's about being curious about what's happening in the body, releasing judgment, and then really noticing. So it's very slow paced, which you can see I'm not. I do slow down in my sessions. I'm just a very passionate person. And so when I'm working with clients, of course I'm slow, but it's slow paced, and it's really about giving lots of spaciousness and helping them just be where they are. But then also noticing, for example, like if somebody, and I do this sometimes too, like today I did this in session, the person I was working with, she felt lopsided. She kept doing so, I feel lopsided. Right. And so I would have her hold that position and see what arises within based on what's happening. And we get all this amazing information from that. And so there's other aspects to it as well, but the gist of it is utilizing mindfulness and the physical body to promote healing and to gather information and to bring the unconscious into consciousness. And then the Koya practice that I do, I use Koya, and then I also incorporate my own dance, whatever spontaneously comes up for me, as well as some things I learned in the art of feminine presence. And so what happened with the body centering was I loved it, but again, I felt like there's more feminine stuff that I want to be doing. And then Lindsay, you're actually the one who told me about Koya, and I took it and ran with it. And so I went through that training to do that. And so now I'm incorporating that as a piece of the work that I do. And I have have found that bringing that piece, even with clients I've worked with for the last several years, doing the body-centered work, bringing that piece in has been so transformational and so pivotal and so powerful.
You're too loud. Mm-hmm.
Do what? Oh,
Is
that somebody else? And so it's been really exciting for me. And then bringing in the spiritual components and the ritual and the despacho ceremony and on and on and on. So I feel like I do, and I'm sure I'll continue to learn and grow as we all do. I mean, I'm still doing my own self-transformational work, but I do feel like my circle is, I will be happy if this is my set of tools for the rest of my work experience, because it really does work and it really is powerful. And I really have been able to witness fantastic, massive transformations with women and myself. I use these tools myself. So
absolutely. Well, before we get into the transformation and the results that you see, tell us a little bit about why we are so chronically disconnected from our body, especially as women.
So, okay. So I would say that when we are born as whole beings. We're not blank slates as people once thought, right? So we are these whole beings who have our own paths ahead of us. And what happens during childhood is the well-meaning and sometimes not well-meaning family members, parents, teachers, bullies at school, whoever it is, they intentionally sometimes or unintentionally squash our feelings. And so what happens is when a child is allowed to be fully expressed, they clear energy so fast. And when we allow them to have their feelings, they're done. They're done after they throw their tantrums or after they have their issues. But it's the adults that get triggered by their own issues that end up squashing the children. And so then we start storing all of this stuff on a cellular level, but also, so there's all these different aspects to it. So also generationally, on a genetic wise, we also can carry the patterning energetically, genetic, all of it. So all of our patterning is passed down from generation to generation to generation to generation. And so some of the stuff we're hanging on to doesn't even belong to us. It might be our great-great-grandmother's stuff that was passed down to, our great-grandmother, to our grandmother, to our mother, to ourselves. And so we store that on a cellular level in our bodies. And then that creates, so that's traumatic. So it creates trauma. We have trauma. We store the trauma. And what else do I want to say about that, Lindsay? We've been working.
Well, I love that you're bringing in the ancestral piece, because I don't think we have enough conversation about it, and it's so important. But what's great about the work that you do and this work that moves energy through the body is it's going to affect you on the entire prism. So not just that cellular component that maybe comes from childhood or adulthood or actually, adult trauma or childbirth trauma or all of these things. It does start to kind of tease out those components that we have inherited through our lineage, not just genetically, but also culturally. Think about the cultural trauma we've had, on this continent alone.
Absolutely. And just with the birth trauma, I used to specialize in birth trauma. And what I found, even getting into the body with the birth trauma, is even before the birth trauma occurred, there was already trauma in the womb for another reason or for some other reason. And it was just activated due to the childbirth experience that was perceived as traumatic, which that's another thing too. I mean, trauma is all about perception, right? For one person, an event may or may not be traumatic, but for another person, it might be the opposite. And so we store all this stuff in our bodies, and then we get stuck and it becomes unconscious, and it's unconscious patterning. And if we're not conscious of it, and we're not aware of it, it can be challenging to change. Now, some might actually argue against that. This is just the way I work. I know that, I see energy healers and people of that nature too. So I know that it is possible to move that energy as well. But the way I like to work is really helping the person see what the unconscious patterning is, so they can bring it into present moment experience and see how that unconscious patterning is impacting their marriage, their parenting, their relationships with themselves, relationships with friends, with family members. Because once you're aware of those things, you can make changes on a regular basis more. And I feel like it's empowering too, because I feel like you can then see or noticing what's happening in your body where you're holding fear. A lot of women store it in their chest and in their throats. And so just being aware of that, like, oh, I'm noticing my throat's tightening. Okay, this is the fear coming up. Let me just be with it and breathe through it and allow it to move, because all of it is just energy wanting to move up and out of your body. That's all feelings are. We are the ones who assign feelings good or bad, negative or positive, and it just is. It's just energy wanting to flow through the body. But that stuck energy is what blocks the receiving and all of the things that we're wanting to create and bring into our lives.
Absolutely. And when it's uncomfortable in our body because of all that stuck energy, we tend to spend a lot of time in the ethers, especially as new paradigm folks. It's a lot easier to be out of our bodies where it's not so painful and it's light and it's high vibration than it is to be in our bodies. But again, what I see in people is not only that they experience what you're describing in terms of trauma and discomfort or anxiety or pain, they're also going to start to experience issues around their business alchemy energies, like their life force energy, like their ability to resonate with their clients effectively, like their ability to receive financial abundance. So again, this thing of, if you're experiencing those kinds of disconnects, look at where you are spending your time, how you are connected or not connected to your body, and begin to engage in those practices that bring you into your body. So Dawn, tell us a little bit about what we can do to get reconnected. And then is there an exercise?
Can I say one more thing about, can I say, you sparked something for me.
Sure.
So what I also want to say about being in the body is, once you've experienced that trauma, you do disconnect. And then with anxiety, that is very much a mind chatter type issue. So fear, anxiety, you get in your heads, you're in your heads all the time. And so you're not connected to your body. But what I was going to say is, especially people who have experienced trauma in this lifetime, it is sometimes the body doesn't feel like a safe place to be. And so it's a natural response to shoot out of the body. And just like you were saying, it's uncomfortable to be in the uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to be with the feelings that don't feel good to us. And so we shoot out of the body, or we avoid it. And I'm guilty of doing that sometimes too. It's like, oh, I have too much going on right now. My kids are coming home after school. I can't have some tearful breakdown. I need to be grounded before home, and then I'll wait till tomorrow, and then I'll make space for it, and so sometimes we compartmentalize as well. But as far as getting into the body, I mean, there are a lot of different ways to do that. And for me, what I like to do is I like to do simple grounding exercise and connecting to the earth, and then connecting heaven and earth, but then also going through each part of my body, starting from my feet all the way up to my head, like each little tiny part of the body, to see what is present. Because a lot of times, sometimes people know it's present. They'll say, well, I've had this sharp pain here, but that's from this old shoulder, injury from when I did athletics. And so I invite people to let go of the story around why they have the injury, and really go into it and explore it and examine it and see what arises from that. Because a lot of times a feeling will be stuck there, an image will come up, an old memory. It might feel familiar to the person, but just bringing people through their each section of their body, and one part of your body, sometimes two, are going to be more present and want your attention more than the other parts. And so that's how I personally bring people into the body, and that's how I like to get into my own body. It is just to go literally like that, just piece by piece.
Dawn, will you take us on a mini body scan so everybody here can experience kind of your guided process for doing that inquiry?
Yes. And so this can take 30 seconds, or it can take 30 minutes, but I'm going to take probably 2 minutes.
That sounds good.
So put your feet on the floor and just notice the floor underneath your feet, and just notice Mother Earth coming up to support you. And then just become aware of the chair underneath you. If you're sitting on a chair, if you have a back supporting you, just be aware, and be aware of the space around you, and that we're all here together. And then starting with your feet, we're just looking for physical sensations, and being curious as if you are meeting a friend for the first time, and you're wanting to learn as much information about that friend as possible. And if you find yourself moving into judgment, if you find yourself going into your mind and just thinking about things you need to do today, then just notice that, and then just go back to the body. So there's no judgment, it's just a noticing and coming back. So starting with the soles of your feet, just seeing if there's any physical sensations. And a physical sensation might be a buzzing, a numbness, a tingling, a tightness, a squeezing, a compression. anything that comes to mind for you, even a heaviness or even a lightness. And then moving your awareness from the soles of your feet up through your toes, the top of your feet to your ankles, and then continuing to breathe. So we want to continue breathing through the process as well. And then bring your awareness from your ankles up to your knees. And from your knees up to your hips, so your inner, your outer thighs, your quads, your hamstrings, and all the cells, the muscles, the bones in between. And then move your awareness up through your bottom. And if you're male on the line, I don't know who's male and female, but up through your vagina, your penis, your womb space, so your uterus, your hips. And then we're going to go up the back. And so bringing your attention from your lower back up to your mid-back. Continuing to breathe. Your mid-back up to your shoulder blades and all the space in between. From your shoulder blades up to your shoulders. And just moving your attention down each arm, one arm at a time. So from your shoulder down to your elbow. And again, just looking for physical sensations, temperatures, even textures might show. From your elbows down to your wrists. From your wrists down to through the palms of your hands to your fingertips and the back of your hand, including your fingernails. Continuing to breathe in. Bringing your attention back around to your womb. And from your womb, up through your mid-stomach, and then up to your diaphragm right underneath your breasts. From there, up through your breasts, to your heart space, to your collarbone, to your throat, to the sides of your neck and the back of your neck. Moving up to the back of your head, and the sides of your head, including your ears. Just really tuning into places that we don't give much thought to during our day-to-day lives. Your chin, your lips, your tongue, the roof of your mouth, your teeth, the back of your throat. Your nose, your cheeks, your eyes, including your eyelids, your eyelashes, your pupils, your eyebrows, to your forehead, to the crown of your head. And then usually what we would do is just do a brief full scan, a silent scan of the body, and just see what part of your body wants your attention in this moment right now. And then that's when we would begin to explore more deeply what's happening. I can give you a simple process to release it right now. If anybody
that would be great. I'm sure our cells are talking to us.
So
whatever has illuminated itself for you that wants your primary layer of attention, to everyone on the call, Dawn's going to take you through a simple practice now to release that.
So just notice the physical sensation in your body. So if it's in your chest, for example, and let's say it's a tightness, notice if it's a pulling, a twisting, a compression, and just be with it for a moment and notice what feeling comes along with it. And just be present with it just for a moment. And continue to breathe. And then assign it a color. Whatever color comes to mind first is the color. This isn't something to think about. It just arises. And just notice the color of that space. And then I invite you to take a deep breath in. And as you breathe in this beautiful golden spirally light that goes all the way down to the space that you're holding that energy. And as you breathe out the color of light of that space. So if you assigned your heart space blue, breathe out the blue. So you're breathing in the golden light and breathing out the assigned color. You want to bring the light all the way down to the space that you're holding the energy and allow it to move back through. Taking really deep breaths. And breathe out as if you're blowing out candles on a birthday cake. That'll help too.
Ooh.
And then as you open your eyes, just be aware of the first three things you see in front of you in your physical space to bring you back into this space.
That was powerful. Hi, Elena.
Hi, Elena.
We have so many Mystic Sisters here. Hi, everybody. So if you joined us in progress, so we were just going through a tiny sample of Dawn's work for how to help us reconnect to our body. And we talked a little bit about all the many reasons that we do disconnect. And I know that the first question, we went right into it as we moved through the scan of now what can I do about it? How can I help release? But I want to really encourage everyone too to gain awareness that just the process that Dawn showed you there in those couple minutes, just the inquiry, just the scan alone begins the natural process of the release. When we think about how we greet people in the world, the thing that feels best is when someone actually looks you in the eye and says, like they mean it, and they do mean it, how are you doing? Mm-hmm. And yet we so often don't do that for our own bodies, for our own selves. So just taking whatever time you have, 30 seconds to 30 minutes, as Dawn said, to have that dialogue. How are you doing, eyelashes? How are you doing, back of the throat? The first session I had with Dawn was I just want to tell this story, was so incredibly powerful. Because as many of you know, I was coming out of a phase of chronic illness. And although I felt that I had treated my body very well, I hadn't realized until I did a session with Dawn that I was still treating my body like the patient. I was telling it what it needed. I was giving it all the self-care it needed, but I hadn't actually gone back to treating my body like a person, like its own thing. And just through the process of doing that scan, I had the most unbelievable tears flowing. And they were coming from a cellular level, from my cells, actually feeling gratitude for just being asked how they were doing. It's like we can get to all that other stuff about where the pain is or what wants attention next later. It was like this profound gratitude from every place that my awareness dropped in. Thank you for letting me be seen. Thank you for honoring me with the inquiry. And thank you for creating space. That's exactly what we're talking about today. We're creating the space to receive. And whether it's what Dawn described of the squashing down, and I'm a big fan of the metaphor, but literally when as children or however we have our emotions squashed down, it literally is compressing. It's like a force vector of that emotion into ourselves. So just this process of scanning creates that shift and that opening. The other one that Dawn walked us through right there was the breath. I don't think there is a more powerful, innate, biological release mechanism than our breath. I am a chronic, Dawn knows this because she's always catching me on it, chronic breath holder. I don't know if anybody else on the call.
I used to be a chronic breath holder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about that for a second before we get into the next piece. What do you recommend for those of us that are the high-paced hummingbird chronic breath holders?
It's all a practice, right? I mean, there's no magical solution to any of this. It's all a practice, and just taking the time to practice breathing. The way I started to learn to breathe deeply, I just thought it was because I was a competitive swimmer for so many years and I spent so many hours in the pool that I just wasn't breathing enough. But I'm sure there's way more to it than that. But what I started doing is at night laying, and I still do this actually, it's just innate now. But when I'm lying down at night in my bed, I take 3 full-on deep breaths, breathing in my nose down to my belly and breathing out of my mouth as if I'm blowing out candles on a birthday cake. And just that beginning practice alone has helped me notice and catch myself during the day, because I'm a fast-paced person too, but I'm also learning to I have gotten so good at the balancing act of going and then being. And so it's all been a practice, but just starting just simply with saying, okay, when I lie down at night, that's when I'm going to start breathing. And then you'll just start noticing during your day, the more you do that, you'll start noticing that you start breathing more than you were breathing before. That's what happened for me anyway.
Yeah. And I want to link this piece back to manifestation and the life cycle to receiving as well. Because ultimately, if you are a person who holds your breath, or if you are a person that kind of has that forward momentum energy, that means a large part of your conscious mind, your energetic body, and your light body is out in front of you, which means you are not actually here in the present moment now. It isn't until we're actually breathing and taking that full breath that we are aligned in the now. And ultimately, the only place from which we can manifest effectively is from the right here, right now. That forward energy is fantastic, again, if you're blocked on that visioning side of the wheel. But that in the moment energy, that aligned energy, absolutely needs to be in place for us to fully pull through and to bring into the now. So that breath is such a great indicator of where you are spending your time. And if you find yourself out in front, using the breath to come back into the here and now. I know the breath and the scanning are powerful, and I want everyone to feel reassured that in and of itself can create transformation. But you also have 2 practices that you guide women through. And I want to touch on 2. Well, you have many, but 2 of them that I want to touch on are shaking and circling. Can you tell us a little bit about each and how each serves in different ways to facilitate this opening and receiving?
So Koya is made up of 13 pillars, and I actually use 12 of the 13 pillars in the practice with women. And the 2 that you're thinking circling and shaking. So the circling I utilize to help women get out of the linear way of moving. We move through the world and we just move in the same way. We drive the same way to work. If you work outside the home, we drive the same way to get our kids, and everything is just very linear. And so the circling is a really great way to get your body to move in a different way and to start rewiring your brain and rewiring the patterning that you've been accustomed to. And I also love the circling. So that's the main focus of it for me. But I also love it when I'm on my period. It's awesome because it's really gentle. And if I don't feel like doing some big free dance or shaking or anything, the circling is very gentle, and I feel so nurtured, and it brings like this piece of self-compassion and self-love in for me. And so that's what it does for me. And I know it's probably different for each woman. And so it would be about experiencing it for yourself and seeing what that does for you.
And can you describe that process so people could experiment with it, either in a chair or standing, or what that looks like?
You just put on some nice relaxing music, and then you're just going to circle your head around one way, and then you're going to cross the rainbow to the other side. And so you do that a few times, and then you switch directions. And I'm going through this kind of quickly. I'm thinking about our time too. And then you're going to bring your shoulders back. And I love this one because it really opens and expands your heart out. So as you're bringing your shoulders up and back, and this is all standing. I mean, I do this standing. And then you're going to take a deep breath in, and you're going to lean down to the ground, and then you're going to circle your arms back and do that a few times. I actually like circle my arms forward too because I like symmetry. And so, but that's not actually what she does in Koya. And then you can circle your heart around. I like to do slow circles too. And then you want to circle the other way, and then getting into your hips, and you can do tiny teeny tiny hip circles, or you can do really wide hip circles, like putting your butt really far out and your pelvis the other direction, and then circle each leg, like the bottom of your leg and each foot, and do that both directions. And so you just go through your entire body, and your wrist. You want to circle your wrist. I forgot the wrist, the belly dancing wrist.
So we definitely do this practice standing, and it's powerful, but I also want to encourage people to build it in as part of your business alchemy practice. So I have these like little star Post-its that I make for myself, and these are the things that speak to my physical practice typically. And I do want to encourage you to think as you're going into, work mode, where we tend to want to do that from the brain and again through action. Mm-hmm. If you have a little note to yourself to do 3 or 4 circles in your chair, you're bringing that feminine energy in. You're bringing that goddess energy in, that flow in. I find it's a really powerful intersection of that sacred masculine working energy with the divine feminine. Mm-hmm. So do be thinking about how some of these physical embodiment movement exercises can be adapted for your work practices as well, because they have these incredible benefits that not only serve on the level of the physical healing, but in business too. They get that energy flowing.
So that was the circling. Were you referring to hip opening?
Mm-mm. No, okay. I was talking about circling, but I think of the hip piece. Well, maybe I'm thinking of the two the same.
The hip opening was the one I did at Be Great.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of more how we've done, circling and creating the circles. Yeah.
Okay.
But then shaking is another really powerful one. I remember reading a mothering magazine, I think like in 2001, where Peggy O'Mara was talking about how she felt one of the most traumatic components of modern society for children today was that when children get hurt or have an emotion or something uncomfortable happens, there is this kind of pattern cultural response that we hold them, compress them, and stop them. And she was saying, I know that we think that this is the right thing to do, that we're expressing love, that we feel like we're containing their energy. But what we're also doing in that moment is we're preventing the body from trying to gas the energy, basically. And she used this this example of the deer, and how when you see a deer in nature who's either been startled by the car or has had a predator come, the deer shakes off its fear once it's safe. And then it doesn't spend the rest of its day dealing with post-traumatic stress about the near miss with the car or having nightmares about the cougar that was in the tree. It actually processes the trauma and the emotion in the moment through shaking. And so bringing in that shaking process, I found to be just incredibly powerful, not only on the conscious level, but on that cellular level, like you're describing. Can you tell us a little bit about how the shaking process works and how we can begin?
So we can go through a little exercise right now. And I would have told the gazelle story about the lion chasing it through the woods, but that's great. You told it. So now we can just do the shaking piece. So if you just shake your right hand, just shake it. We're going to shake it for about 30 seconds. And so you just shake. And it's true. Like that's how animals process their fear. They shake it. And what Rochelle says, and then they don't spend the next 10 years in therapy. You'd be a lot of therapists out of work. No. So you just shake, and then stop shaking, and then put your hands, palms facing each other. And then notice how each hand feels. Like for me, my right hand feels buzzy. My left hand feels kind of flat and kind of dead weight a little bit. And just notice how your hands feel for you. And that's why we shake, because it does so much. It activates energy, it releases energy, and it resets your nervous system. So if I am in a crummy mood or I'm irritated with somebody, I shake. If I'm feeling a lot of fear, I shake. If I want to start my day energized, I shake. So it's not just for one thing or another. It really is an amazing process. And so the shaking process is you just start out shaking so again, putting on some awesome music that gets your body going, and you just shake your right leg. You start shaking your right leg, and you shake it for maybe 9 or 10 seconds. And then you shake your left leg for 9 or 10 seconds. And then you do what's like the football run. So you can either do it with your heels just coming off the ground and your the pads of your feet and toes on the ground, or you can lift both feet off the ground. And then you lie down on your back and you shake your feet up in the air, and then you stand up, and then you wag your tail. And then you shake your hips, and then you shake your stomach, and then you shake your heart. So you're opening your heart, and then you do your shoulders up and down, and then you shimmy, and then you do your right arm, and then your left arm, and then you can gently shake your head, and then you shake your whole entire body, and then you can go through the whole process again. And another way, so when we take people through shaking with Koya, we talk about really releasing whatever is that you're hanging on to that you want to release, and allowing it to plant seeds into Mother Earth so she can create something much more beautiful and transmute it for you. So you're just allowing Mother Earth to take that energy that's not serving you to create something more beautiful. And then also during the shaking, creating an intention for yourself, and what are you calling in? So not only what are you releasing, but what are you calling in? How do you want to feel? So that's a piece of it as well.
Absolutely.
That's one of my favorite ones. Shaking, I think shaking, hip opening, and heart opening are my favorites.
Yeah. It really is my physical practice that I can count on every day. I tend to get to the hill every day. I tend to do my other core routines, but a non-negotiable for me when I get out of bed and I get started is shaking, because it's so easy. You can kind of factor in a little thymus tap or anything else. Yeah. And that is literally how I envision getting the vessel, the body, ready to receive for the day. And I think it's so important. So tell us a little bit about the kinds of transformation that you see as women start to reconnect to their body and allow embodiment to be a mechanism towards opening to receiving.
Specifically for receiving.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different things, because when we're fully connected to our bodies, we're connected to our intuition. We become more connected spiritually. We become more connected to the truth of who we are. We start trusting ourselves more. We trust our decisions more, because a lot of the women that I've worked with in the past, they have so much anxiety and they just do not trust themselves. Right. They lack confidence. And so with all of that, hi, Robin. Hi, Robin. And so they become more confident in who they are, in the way they're parenting, in the way they're being, and who they're being in the world. They are able to speak up more in their love relationships, and they're able to claim their power and own their truth, and all of these, what do these terms mean, really? But they just feel, when they're fully embodied, they're able to open to receive more love. They're able to open to receive, just the little free course I did a couple of times, the 8 days of heart-centered receiving. I mean, it's just 8 days, and people were receiving clients and money and connection with their loved ones and downloads and all of these different things, just by putting the intention toward it, doing some releasing exercises, getting clarity. But it goes on, and it really truly depends on what each woman is wanting to call in. But the main things I see are self-confidence, self-connection, ability, closer relationships with partners, closer relationships with their children, ability to stay calm in situations that would usually send them over the edge, to be aware of their triggers more, and to be more aware of their bodies, and to know when they need to slow down, or know when it's okay to move on and move forward, which I think is a really big one. Yeah. And my favorite, to feel more sensual and more, especially with the Koya, incorporating the Koya practices, like just watching the women embody that femininity that they had put on the side after becoming moms, or maybe they never felt that in the first place, like, in really feeling their bodies and moving their bodies in a way that they've never moved them before, and the shifts that just happen because, again, creating new neural connections. We can always create, even as adults, we can create new neural pathways. And so when we are doing these things, it helps promote that as well.
Yeah.
Less depression, less anxiety. I mean, it's been really amazing to see. And honestly, on some level, it's been even mind-blowing for me to witness. I know what it's done for me personally, but to witness other women move into that space is so beautiful.
Oh, I feel the same way. I mean, it's awe-inspiring, and it moves you so much to see what women are capable of when they start to create space to receive.
Yes.
And everything you're describing, I can echo on the business side too, that as these things come into place about how you run energy and how you experience your own body, you then can move into the next ring, which is how you move into right livelihood, how you align to that. I feel like when we aren't connected to our body and we're in that frenetic, forward-thinking energy, we are often actually blocking our own ability to align to our true purpose and path. And it takes this kind of practice to actually come back into the moment, back into the space where we can start to receive, because ultimately it's my belief that the universe is conspiring on your behalf all of the time to align you to your destiny and to your true purpose and path. And it is most typically ourselves and our own stress that's preventing us from accessing that completely. So Dawn, I want to make sure that everyone knows how to find you. I also want to make sure that people hear about are you going to be doing the 8 days again? Tell us a little bit about that.
I don't know. I'm not sure. Because I'm in the process of creating 22 days of heart-centered receiving, but it'll be like a low price point course on my site.
Okay.
So I haven't decided if I'm going to run the 8 days again. If there's enough interest, then I would be happy to do that.
Okay.
And then, so I'm at dawnkgibson.com, and it's pretty awesome. It was awesome. But I'm at dawnkgibson.com, and the things I have going right now. So we just finished up the 8 days of heart-centered receiving, the second round of it. And I also have a 6-month course starting in January called the Sacred Wisdom Circle course. And it's an experiential course. And so we incorporate all of these practices, and there's a healing component, and then also stepping into the divine feminine component as well. And there's ceremony and rituals, and a lot of releasing, a lot of embodiment happening as well. And that I've run that a couple times now, and it's amazing. Like, I love it. It's all of my work combined into one, and it's phenomenal. And that's pretty much.
Let me jump in there.
I have private mentorship too as well. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to jump in on that program piece, because you you touched on a lot of the different facets of, we know what I call, people in the mystic world know I call the life wheel, but we talked about your gifts on the talk side, on the body side, on the movement side, on the dance side. We didn't really get into gratitude too much, but the dispatch ceremony that you also kind of have adapted from Koya is a gratitude practice, and you brought in the gratitude as you helped us do the scan. You also have this relationship component, and an unbelievable capacity to hold space for us as we navigate our relationships with ourselves and our children and our partners. The inquiry, one of the most gifted artists and mentors around body inquiry and coaching into inquiry. So I just want to stress that those components are also beautifully present in your program. And the sensual piece, that is one that I feel doesn't exist in enough places. And like you said, to feel good in our body, but also, part of what I put with this salon is the missing piece to manifestation, because that sensual piece, that attraction piece, is part of our innate gifts and part of the divine feminine. And if we aren't making space for that, then we're basically amputating a key sense that allows us, a key frequency that allows us to attract to us.
And the sensual piece, it's not, even with the hip opening, the Koya hip opening is very sexy, and it's very beautiful, and it's very sensual, but it's not for others. It's not for other people. It's for us to feel it in our bodies, and to do it in a way that feels good. Koya is all about do what feels good to you in your own body. It doesn't matter what I'm showing you. Do what feels good in your body. If what I'm doing doesn't feel good to you, shift it so it does. And the sensual piece, I feel like sensuality sometimes is seen as for others, but it's really more of a practice for self. And to me, that falls into the pleasure, the self-pleasure, the self-love piece as well. It's all grouped together in that. And I also this is the work I do too. I have a one-on-one online mentorship as well. And so it's called Rewired, and it's helping to rewire patterns and brains and all of these things. And we incorporate the movement, we incorporate the body centering, and I bring in the oracle cards and those types of things as well. And
you have an online community as well.
Yeah, it's the Sacred Wisdom. I have so many Sacred Wisdoms now. It's the Sacred Wisdom Women's Circle. And it's on Facebook. Yeah. Yes. And if people are local in Austin, I have a local meetup also called the Sacred Wisdom Sisterhood that starts meeting tomorrow.
Wonderful. You also made some beautiful gifts available for Mystic Society members. Can you tell us a little bit about what they can expect and how to engage with those?
So are you talking about the free gifts?
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about the ones that you listed on the note?
Yes.
Help me remember.
Well, we will go ahead and send those out to everybody that registered, and we'll also include them in the Mystic Society. Okay. But what I want you to feel most encouraged to do is to be in Dawn's space as much as possible. This is innately her life wheel. This just jubilant, fun, high vibrational energy, this unbelievable compassion for women and their journey, this innate ability to hold space for transformation and healing. This is what goes part and parcel with everything Dawn does. So do go check out her Facebook group and get on her list. Dawn, if there were one thing that you could kind of wave your magic wand for every woman who's listening to this call to do or to claim for themselves so that they can open themselves to this kind of blessing and receiving, what would that one thing be?
So what comes to me is self-compassion. So starting with self-compassion, really having compassion for yourself and for your journey and for where you are on your journey. Every step of the way, it can be really easy to go into judgment mode. And then also, I would say incorporate either the circling or the shaking on a daily basis just to get your body moving and get that momentum going and start allowing yourself to release so you can open that space to receive. But I feel like self-compassion and self-gratitude is a big one. I think we're all really good at doing our gratitude list, but I wonder how often we have a gratitude list for ourselves.
For ourselves, yeah. Absolutely. That's so huge. Thank you, Dawn. Well, I want to give everybody the opportunity, anyone who might have a question for Dawn, this is a great opportunity to have a couple minutes of her time right here live. Do you have any questions that you would like? We can unmute you or you can put them into the chat. As people are thinking about their questions, Dawn, do you know that Lisa Wolf has a posture program? I was thinking that you two should hop on the call at some point and be connected. Lisa, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about your posture program?
Sure. I did the posture program when I was a personal trainer, and I had clients coming in who really couldn't move their bodies at all. They were so disconnected from their bodies, and they couldn't even do exercises, really simple ones. That I wanted them to do. And so I started working with their posture and alignment. And I was doing it at the same time myself. And what I realized is that putting my body into alignment opened this huge spiritual door. And in the course of doing a lot of research on posture alignment, the interplay between the body, the mind, and the spirit, I uncovered some really incredible things. And I had clients come into me who literally were like this, right? They were working on their computers, and through using the posture program, they ended up, in one case, avoiding surgery, not having to get cortisone injections into their neck, that kind of thing. And so when I left personal training last year, I decided to make my workshop into a video series. So I have that video series now. And I was actually, because I'm doing my energy work and my shaman work, I was having trouble connecting that to what I'm doing now until I realized through Lindsay reminded me and other people is that, alignment and getting into the body, we can be very spiritual up in the upper chakras, right? But we made a decision to come into these bodies to learn lessons. And so coming into our bodies
and to experience joy and pleasure. To receive goodness.
Yeah. So I'm relaunching it, and the research that I've been doing is amazing because we have a crystal grid. We have a liquid crystalline grid in our bodies, and if we can get that aligned, man, it just changes our entire reality.
Well, I love that you guys will be connected and both be singing the praises of this embodiment work. And I want to encourage, go ahead, Dawn.
I want to add, you know, I love everything she talked about, and I can see how getting people into that alignment would bring up some stuff, the emotional stuff as well. But I love what you said about the joy piece. And one thing I wanted to add, you know, we talked a lot about how the body stores trauma and all of these different things. And sometimes when people check into their bodies, and I've worked with people who, when they're checking their bodies, they feel expansiveness and they feel lightness and they feel open and they feel, and that's something I did a group this summer. And in the beginning, we did a lot of body centering, a lot of clearing, a lot of stuff. But by the end, we were doing way more movement than we were getting into the bodies because everybody was so clean and clear. And so that's also a place we can go back to. Like, you can go back in when you find that spaciousness, that expansiveness, that beautiful, buzzy gold color, whatever color it is for you in your body, you can always revisit that place, and it's always there. It's always within you. You can go back to that and start, you know, rewiring in that way as well.
I love that rewiring. Well, I want to thank you so much, Dawn.
Thank you.
Having you here today is such a fun thing for me, but also such a pleasure. And it also is such important work. It just means the world to me that you have kind of claimed this area of mentorship and coaching and transformation for women. I want to encourage everyone again to be thinking about the ways in which Dawn talked about all those aspects of her wheel and how she allowed them to not kind of become past lives, future lives, but actually become an integrated part of her wheel. And as a result has created this really unique, powerful transformative work that's specific to her and so incredibly aligned to her gifts and her energies. And so be thinking about, when you think about Dawn, think about not just the context we talked about today, but also that meta level of what a beautiful, shining example of someone truly aligning to their purpose and path looks like. So, Dawn, anything else you want to say before we hop off?
I just am feeling a lot of gratitude for everybody showing up and being here, and I have some faith that you got something from it. So
yeah, everyone was certainly here for a reason. Yeah. Certainly, there's always a piece for each of us, and I hope that we all can receive that. And Lisa, thank you for sharing your story. I love you presencing the posture component and that inner crystalline grid. And thank you again, Dawn, for your generosity of time and gifting. And everybody, I do encourage you to keep an eye out for that. We also mentioned the manifestation life cycle. So if you have questions about that, that's in the Mystic Society as well. And I will pop the diagram of that into the replay email as well. And I think we will conclude from there and release our oneness of heart and mind if everyone feels ready to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and separate hearts and minds now, releasing the directions that we've called in, and with tremendous gratitude for all of you who joined us today, all of you who will be listening in divine timing, and especially to Dawn for bringing her light forward and blessing us all in this way. And now our hearts and minds are separated so we can go forth and laugh our own laughs and dream our own dreams and wiggle our own wiggles and shake our own shakes, knowing that we can tap back into this basket whenever and however we so desire. So thank you all so much. It was great to see you all today. Take care. Much love.
Lindsay, can you hang on for a minute?
Of course. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
And I will invite our friend Candace to stop recording. Thank you, everybody.